Welcome to another segment of Beyond Boundaries. I'm Dr. Shaniqua Fleming, and I'm really excited to have this time with you this month in February. But before we get started with what I want us to talk about today, I want to remind you that on tomorrow, February 28th, we will be having our Walk to Wellness Senior 1K Walk. Yes, that's right. The City of Miramar is keeping our seniors healthy. And the walk is going to be held at the Miramar Regional Park. It begins at 10 a.m. So be there and be ready to walk and have fun with the seniors. So make sure that you bring your lunch because this year lunch will not be provided. However, refreshments and healthy snacks will be available for you. So remember, wear closed-toe shoes, sunscreen, and bring a towel. A red one if you have it, in recognition of American Heart Month. So again, we hope to see you Thursday, February 28th, which is tomorrow, for the Walk to Wellness, our Senior 1K Walk. Now, on for what we want to talk about today. So I want to unpack something that has really been just on my mind a lot, and I've seen how it has cause many people to not do exactly what the title of the segment is, and that is go beyond where they actually can go. And they sometimes we find ourselves, not just they, but me as well, we can find ourselves stuck. And that is when we make an assumption or we confuse the two things, which we call expertise and development. Now that's expertise, which is your knowledge and your skills and your know-how. Development means the ability to grow and get better, whether it's business development, which is knowing what markets to seize, what strategies to implement or employ, organizational development, what phase of growth you're in, how to change and really move your organization, your people, and your culture forward. Or it could just very well be relationship development. When we think that we have it all, we know it all, and there's nothing else for us to do to hone those skills or build better relationships, I think that's the point where we start to get stuck. And so I want to talk about that a little bit because it's something that I see a lot with not just my clients, but I also experienced this with myself. And it was interesting because, I have almost 2 decades of experience with leadership development and organizational development and all of those things that I'm in love with, but not necessarily as it related to running my business. As many of you know, I was a part-time consultant for many years and working in organizations. And about 3 years ago, I decided to focus in my business full-time. And so this thing surfaced for me. And so I want to share a little bit of that journey with you with the hopes that you will hear something that will help you wherever you might be getting stuck, or you can go beyond and understand that your skill level or your expertise does not equate to, and it is not the same thing as your development. And so, last year was a really interesting and a really fun year for me, but there were some lessons that weren't so fun along the way as well. So one of the areas that I am seen and known as an expert in is human resources. And one of the things I realized in my business was I always know to outsource those things that sometimes we want to do them because they're our areas of expertise, but there are those blind spots we have. And so sometimes there are things that we can see for other people, but we don't always see them for ourselves. And so in doing that, I realized that making some, hiring decisions, I made decisions from a place of compassion versus really thinking about what my business needed. And that cost me. It cost me, I'm not necessarily concerned only about the dollars it cost me and the investments I made there, but it cost me in terms of time and development in the business. And it also put me in a position where I did not do what was right for the individuals that were hired to perform certain services for me or fill certain capacities. And so when I really took a moment and I took a step back to look at that, yes, I had expertise and I have expertise in human resources, but that didn't necessarily mean that I was practicing those skills as it related to my business. So I want to just pause right there to ask you a question. Where are you an expert, or where do you have familiarity in your life and your relationships, and you are equating that to you've learned all, you've done it all, you've developed it all as it relates to, how you continue to move forward and get better? that's the place where I want you to challenge yourself, and I want you to go a little deeper and realize that those two things are not the same thing. And if we get to a point where we don't think we can grow, then we're probably dead. Anything that's not growing, it is dead, whether it's a business, whether it's a strategy, whether it's a relationship, a plant, whatever. If it's not growing, it's probably not serving you, and it's time to really pivot or take another look at it and see where might you be confusing expertise with the need for development. I see this a lot with leaders. I was having a conversation the other day, and here's a leader that literally has been in their profession for over 30 years. And we got to a point in the conversation where most of what she has done and she is doing, it just was stale for her. And so my question to her was, where did you where did you get disconnected? That's actually what I asked her. And her response to me was, I don't know. And I think what happened along the way was there was this thought and this feeling that she was doing this thing that kind of became almost routine because she was an expert, but there wasn't really a focus of how am I growing? How am I continuing to develop myself? And so as a result, what got her to where she was not taking her where she wanted to go. And so why does this happen? That's a really, great place for us to start in terms of really getting to the root of how do we get past that. There's one thing I want to start with, and I think there is sometimes, this myth that you don't need to do anything else, or you don't need to grow anymore. Or if you have a strength, you should be focusing on developing areas where you may not be as strong. And so I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't be looking to get better in all areas and all aspects of your life or your business or your being. But what I am going to say is let's lean more into our strengths, and let's look at those areas of development, or even sometimes you might want to call them weaknesses, and let's look at how we can navigate those. There's this notion of leaning into the uncomfortable. David Goggins talks about that. And that doesn't mean that you're leaning into things that you don't know how to do. Even in things that you're really strong in, there is a threshold of a comfort zone that you can push yourself even more and become even better. And so in those areas where you may not be as strong, that's where collaboration is going to be a way that you can help navigate those areas that you're not as strong, versus trying to become an expert in those areas and gain these skills, or kid ourselves and say we can do it all, which is the second thing I want to bring up and talk about today. Sometimes we don't find ourselves growing or stretching because we feel like we can do it all. I gave you the example of me. Yes, I am an HR expert, but there is no way I can run the HR operations, move the strategy of the business, get out and do engagement and do all of these things and really be at the top of my game in all of those areas at the same time. And so again, yes, there's expertise, but in terms of business development, that was not something that I had to do for in a full-time capacity, I should say. And so that was an opportunity for me to leverage the support and collaborate with others that, that's all they do every day, day in and day out. Another reason I think we find ourselves in this, in this rut of, confusing our expertise with development is because we may feel like, and I'm saying this really slowly because there's this part of us that sometimes feels embarrassed that I know this thing, so maybe I should know this thing also. And so I want to say to you that competence in one area does not equate to ability or competence in every area. So it's not a blanket, approach or a one size fit all kind of thing. And it doesn't indicate that you're any less competent if you get help or if there's an area that you need to develop even more. Again, I remember thinking back like, wow, I am an expert in how you get people to perform at work. I'm an expert in how you get your organizations to move forward. When it comes to human potential, I'm known and seen as a thought leader in my industry. And the one thing that I realized is that I've always been innovative, and wherever I've been, whatever organization I've been in, I've been able to bring cutting edge strategies and techniques and practices in terms of how we grow people and how we maximize potential and also utilize resources in a way that really moves the organization beyond beyond wherever it thought it could go. But what I realized was that even though I was innovative and maintained, my expertise and all of these things, the way we work was changing faster than I was realizing it, because my application of my skills was really in a bubble as to how I was using it in whatever organization I was in at the time. And so when I found myself on the other side of that, ready to really take my own organization in a direction that I believed it should go, I realized that I had become obsolete in some of, my practices, not my skills, because I still understood and I still had the expertise, but what got me where I was in those organizations was surely not going to take my organization where I wanted to go. And I remember it was frightening for me, and it was scary, because I thought by the time I really figure out and I get myself up to speed as to where I know I need to be, the game is going to change again. And so I did the thing that I had just, I think the Friday before, said to a client of mine. When it comes to strategy and moving forward and really leveraging your expertise, you have to understand that you may not always have the capacity to show up like you want to, but there's always an opportunity to collaborate with others that are doing it just as good as you are or even better. And so that's what I did. I started to look for strategic partnerships that could really give me more bandwidth, not just in my business, but in my own skill set. And that allowed me to really do the thing that we call pivot in my organization and not lose more than I gain. So while there were some lessons learned, there was not what I would consider a great loss, because I consider those lessons to be quite valuable. And I also had an opportunity to, learn and partner with others that were working in a way that was new to me. And again, I had to embrace that, because in all transparency, that didn't feel very good in the beginning, because here I am, this person with almost 2 decades of experience, and I am having some challenges in my business that I have consulted with, I have provided, expertise and advice to many organizations on, but it's quite different when you're having to practice it for yourself. It's kind of like if you're a barber or a hairstylist, you can't see that well in the back of your head, so cutting back there is probably not going to give you the look you want. And so speaking of hair, I always give this analogy. So if you are showing up in a way where you're not embracing the fact that there's still room for you to grow and develop, other people see it. Your clients see it, your family see it, your friends see it, people that you're in other relationships, they see it. And so it's kind of like when guys are losing their hair and they keep combing over and combing over as if we don't see the bald spot. Well, guess what? Everybody sees the bald spot. And being in a place of faking it until we make it, that doesn't help us bridge the gap of skill and development. What really bridges that gap for us is getting in and doing the work. I'll give you another example. I started back working out, and I am working out with an amazing trainer. I could not do push-ups maybe like a month ago. And I'm probably not going to be a bodybuilder, but I've gotten a lot stronger as it relates to being able to do push-ups. I don't like them, but I do them because I know that it's going to get me to the results I want in terms of being healthy. So again, I'm not trying to turn my weakness into this super strength, but I'm navigating it so that I can leverage other things that I do well so that I can be healthier as well. So just another example of how you have to grow. And just because I know and I can tell you and I can probably talk you through how to do a push-up, that doesn't mean that I didn't need to develop those muscles to be able to do them better myself. So again, I want to challenge you to think about, number one, what are your skills and what is your expertise? And number two, how can you continue to develop and strengthen those areas for yourself? And three, is there anything that's holding you back from really getting in and doing the work to develop where you know you can create more capacity, if you will? And if it's something that's holding you back because it's either fear or there's a sense of shame or feeling like I should know this already, or, what does that say about me, or how is that going to look to other people? I will tell you that that is a boundary that you have to break beyond, because if you don't, you're going to find yourself right where you are, not growing, not excelling, not getting the results that you desire or the ones you deserve. And in fact, like I said before, if you're not growing, then that situation, that business, that, relationship, it's dead or it's dying. So with that being said, I want to thank you for tuning into this segment of Beyond Boundaries. And I want to remind you that just because you have the expertise doesn't mean you don't need to develop it. And until next time, we're having our senior walk to wellness. It's our 1K walk for seniors, and it's going to be held at the Miramar Regional Park on tomorrow, February 28th at 10 a.m. Remember, bring your lunch and bring your red towels. Thank you.